Morning, everybody. I certainly appreciate everybody coming out, spending whatever amount of time they can spend with us today to work on something that I think, obviously, and I think if you're here, you think is very important to the future of Lafayette. It's something that we can do to further set ourselves apart from other areas in the country. Now, there's a part of me that wants to take the mic in about a minute and randomly run out and select one of you to tell me that if someone shoved the mic in your face and asked you the question, why do you want to live in Lafayette, or why would you want to visit Lafayette, what would you say? And we'd probably all say similar things, but the good news is there's no right answer. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want anybody to leave that soon into the day. So I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I will ask you over the course of the next 2 days, or whatever amount of time you're able to give us, that you think about that. Because ultimately, that thought process and those answers are going to be what helps us figure out the best way to implement this CREATE initiative. Because we all have our own likes, our own dislikes, areas that need improvement, areas that we do great, and it's not the same, but when you put it all together, we have this pretty unique place where we all live and enjoy. Now, my instructions were as follows. It is critically important for you to set the tone of this 2-day event of all that Lafayette Parish has to offer, so that we can begin to work collaboratively and be smart about knowing what we have as a community, so we can determine how we can efficiently strengthen the second largest economy and most reliable, because of the situation that I found us in as it relates to Parks and Recreation. And I think it's well documented that Parks and Recreation, we don't even have a parish-wide millage to support our Parks and Recreation. The only millage that exists is in the city of Lafayette. And subsequent to that, we know that Youngsville has taxed themselves and built this incredible sports complex. Broussard has done the same thing. So the likelihood of a parish-wide millage for Parks and Recreation is significantly jeopardized, just because a lot of the rest of the parish is taking care of it on their own. And so trying to figure out that budget piece led to conversations, led to bigger thinking, led to, well, why limit it to Parks and Recreation? There's a lot more that we need to look at, a lot more opportunities out there, a lot more challenges out there. And so it grew into what became the CREATE initiative, which is all about our cultural economy. And so that includes all of those things, all of those letters, the recreation, entertainment, arts, tourism, all of those things that help make up this cultural economy. And this economy, as my instructor said, is the second largest economic driver of the area. And it is the most stable. And it can become the largest driver of our economy. And it can make our economy so much more diverse and stable that we don't have to worry about what's happening in the oil and gas industry. What happens in the oil and gas industry would be nice if that just kind of became limelight, right? When times were good, we've got extra. When times are bad, no problem, our economy's rolling along. And this piece is the piece that can give us that stability more than anything else. And that's not to discount the efforts that are going on in the healthcare industry, and that's not to discount what's going on in the technology industries. We're attracting all of those industries here. We're doing a really good job, and it's diversifying our economy, and that's great because we want that. But the one thing we can control as it relates to the economy is our cultural economy. And for those of you that were with us in March when we kind of rolled this initiative out, you heard me say how we don't always have an appreciation for what we have. We end up kind of taking a lot of it for granted just because we've been here long enough that it's just part of who we are and where we live. And when I started digging into statistics is when I found out that Lake Charles and Baton Rouge have 6 and 9 Grammy nominees over the course of the last several years. Shreveport had 20-something Grammy nominees. New Orleans, over all the same period of time, had 153 Grammy nominees. And so it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's why New Orleans is New Orleans. But Lafayette had 150. And so it's not like we're not head and shoulders above everyone else. And there could be Grammy nominees sitting in this audience, eating at a table next to you, and most of Lafayette wouldn't even know. And so I know we can do a better job, not just marketing ourselves to the rest of the world, but we can do a better job of marketing ourselves to the rest of Acadiana. So from that initiative, which was in March, and when we kind of first brought it out into the public discussion, I've had the benefit of meeting with a lot of folks that are here. Some of them are panelists over the course of the next couple of days, and to really start picking their brain about what's the best way, what's the best next steps, what's the most strategic way to start investing our money to get the return on investment that we know is there. I think my role is going to be to quantify that for folks and to say, when we talk about 7-to-1 multiple of earnings or 40-to-1 return on investment, that can't be just numbers that are thrown out in speeches and on sheets of paper and repeated over and over again. People need to understand what it is we're talking about, because good or bad, for whatever reasons, when you talk about the cultural economy, people assume fluff. They assume, oh, that's just all the fun stuff. You know, we should be investing our money in other areas that don't necessarily have the return on investment that we would get by investing some of it in the cultural economy. And so I'm going to take that responsibility. Okay, if you're starting already this early in the morning and being a thorn in my side, I can only imagine how this day is going to go. She just held up the 1 minute sign. So I lost my train of thought, but it was important. So let me just say, since I only have a minute, now I only have 40 seconds. What I need for everyone that's going to participate in today and tomorrow's event is I need you to think with a mayor's hat on. I need you to think that someone is shoving a mic in your face. I need you to think that you are now the ambassador for this incredible community that we all live in, and that whenever you go somewhere, you're thinking about, what does Lafayette need to do? What can we do so that when this business is considering moving somewhere or expanding somewhere, that Lafayette is at the front of their mind. And Lafayette is not the Robertson family and Troy Landry shooting an alligator. Lafayette is Lafayette, right? We have to come up with our story. We need for people to know what Lafayette is. And when families are sitting around the table, and look, I understand government. I understand. It's about public safety, it's about roads, it's about drain. Those things we have to have. And those are the focus of government, right? But there's no business, there's no family, there's no recent college graduate that's sitting around the table when they're trying to figure out where they're going to go to start their family, to raise their kids, to start their careers, that says, ooh, they got the best police force in America, that's where I'm going. That's not how the decisions are made. Those things are assumed and taken for granted. You're going to have the things that government is supposed to provide you with. The decisions are made based on other things, and those other things we have in spades. And we need to make sure that we strategically get that message out there in ways that we can capitalize on and that ends up benefiting us to where we can invest more money in roads and more money in drainage and more money in public safety. So if you all don't mind wearing that hat for me over the course of the next couple of days, I would really appreciate it, because ultimately this has to be a community-wide effort. We need to all figure out what the next best steps are. So thank you for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to the panel here, and I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. All right, so the first panel is going to come up to discuss what is CREATE. We're going to have Ben Berthelot, Director, Lafayette Convention and Visitors Commission; Greg Gautreaux, Manager, Parks and Recs; Greg Gautreaux Jr., President and CEO of LEDA; Dr. Shanae Nelson, she's the Director of Community Development; Kathy Pavi with the ABC Art Fund; Gerd Worstman, Executive Director, Acadiana Center for the Arts. All y'all can start making your way up to the podium. And it's going to be moderated by Carly Holm-Labor, Director for Planning and Zoning. All right, let's give them a big welcome. Thank you all for being here.
Can you guys hear me? All right, well, these guys made their way up. I'm gonna go ahead and start talking because we have 6 of some of the most talented people in our community and only about 45 minutes to let them tell us everything they know. So I think we should go ahead and get started. I wanna thank all of them for agreeing to serve on the panel and just say a couple of quick words. I think that I was asked to help facilitate because this is something that when we decided to do the CREATE Summit, we put it at the end as sort of the crowning achievement of Plan Lafayette Week, which we've been doing all week this week. And this is, you know, so many of the things that CREATE is going to bring together were identified as by our community as priorities in the comprehensive plan. And so we're just thrilled to have such a unifying effort to help kind of bring momentum to so many of the things that we know our community wants to see. So I want to thank the panelists for being a part this morning. And you know, they represent some of the most important institutions in our community who are going to help move CREATE forward. So I'm going to start. I'll start with Kathy because she's to my right. Kathy, if you can just talk about the role of the organization that you're here representing, the ABC Fund, and its role in the cultural economy, and how you all see yourself supporting CREATE. And we'll give you about 4 to 5 minutes, and I'll keep things moving as best I can. Yes, we will.
So my name is Kathy Pavi. I'm actually a partner of BBR Creative, so I actually work in the creative economy. I'm here representing ABC, which is a new endowment in Lafayette focused on art, business, and culture. Our goal is to build a $10 million endowment to sustain our art and cultural assets in our community, because we realize that without them, without them, our future is kind of bleak. I'm also a concerned citizen. That's the most important thing.
All right, good morning, everybody. You guys are awake yet? There's lots of coffee in the back. My name is Gerd Worstman. I am the Executive Director of the Acadiana Center for the Arts. And I want to say 2 things to kick us off. Of course, I represent with the ACA actually what has grown to the 3rd largest arts organization in the state of Louisiana, and I think that's something we as a community need to wrap ourselves around for a second. We operate on about a $3.6 million budget this year, and that makes us, after the big 2 New Orleans Jazz Fest and the Philharmonic, the 3rd largest organization in the state. But our city, our community, is vastly smaller than cities such as Shreveport, Baton Rouge, or New Orleans. And for us to have an entity like that in existence here, I think tells us a bit about the significance of art and culture to our community, and that it really is a central piece of what we do. We've grown to one of the most prolific presenters in this entire region, But today I'm going to take that hat off, and for the purpose of this panel, I'm going to talk about ACA in its origins, because we started in the mid-1970s as an arts council. And we still very much function as an arts council to this region. We serve 8 parishes, what we consider Acadiana. We are partnered to the state, and I see Sheriff Castile back there representing the state here. We distribute 2 different grant products for them, the Decentralized Arts Fund and Statewide Arts Grants. We also work with Greg Gautreaux and LIDA in a partnership doing various grant products. And we do a lot of work in artist services. So we help in community development throughout these 8 parishes, and we try to provide services for artists so they can develop full lives and better career opportunities. We insist that artists get paid fairly for their work, which is something that I think we struggle with in our region. Joel mentioned, rightfully so, that we have 150 Grammy nominees and Grammy winners in this community. But we should remember that the majority of those Grammy nominees and Grammy winners actually works as part-time musicians and has a full-time day job. That's something I think which should resonate with us. We also deeply invested in arts and education, because we believe that education is the key to all of this. And if we want to grow as a real music city, as a real artistic community, we actually also have to invest in our future citizens and artists and creative drivers. So that's my role on this panel today.
Hi, I'm the other Greg Gautreaux. I am the President and CEO of the Lafayette Economic Development Authority. Is this where I give my speech, or is this when I give my introduction? Because he gave a speech.
I think go for the speech. Go ahead.
Okay, I understand I only have 45 minutes, so I'll try to make this as brief as possible. LIDA is all things to all people. And the reason we say that, or actually we don't say it, but I just said it for the first time, is because we're economic developers, and economic development is everything, right? And the cultural economy is a huge part of economic development. Now, we don't really call it the cultural economy because it's more than culture, but I understand that where we live, culture is the reason, you know. I mean, I don't know too many cities where there are 2 Greg Gautreaux sitting next to each other. And I'm really grateful, you know, because when I lived in Lake Charles a long, long time ago, there was a Greg Gautreaux, and he was only known for passing bad checks. And this Greg Gautreaux is not quite as bad as that. The only thing he ever did wrong was a bad call getting Pittsburgh to win the Super Bowl over our Cardinals and the lovely Kurt Warner, but other than that. So, okay, I'm sorry. So, why are we here? It's pretty simple from my perspective. This group this group of industries that come together to represent culture and art, etc., employ 33,655 people in our MSA. They create $1 billion of earnings. And that's not counting restaurants or retail. Restaurants and retail, some restaurants and some retail, or food production and some retail, account for another 24,000 jobs in the MSA and another $1.3 billion. So if you see me spending time on art, it's because it's economic development. But yet, I think Joel hit the nail on the head. The most trouble I ever got into, which is saying a lot, because I get in a lot of trouble lots of times, was when I said about 25, 30 years ago, I guess it was 21 years ago, there was a controversy going on with the NEA, and I said in a local publication that art was economic development. I said art is economic development. And it wasn't a popular statement. I'm proud to say that I was prophetic because people, it's a popular statement now among enlightened people, right? Preacher, choir, preacher, choir. And so I really believe that more and more people understand how important this is to us. We had a group of people in from all over the world yesterday. One guy flew 30 hours to spend a day in Lafayette. And we were talking about lots of things, lots and lots of things, about who we are and fiber and all the things that we've done to support ourselves and to create an opportunity for young people to get a job and companies to grow. But the root of it was, if you had to base your future on something as a community, think about basing it on energy, healthcare, entertainment, including retail, because it's a net attracted to Lafayette by 30%, and technology. Think about that for a minute. Yes, we have ups and downs in the oil and gas industry, you know, and then we have artists that make millions of dollars, and then there's a lull, and there's someone that doesn't. And we've got great medical care, but it's subject to government. But truthfully, I can't imagine a more impressive base to build the future of a community. And so, long term, we may be smaller, we may be larger because of the price of oil. But Joel's right. If we can just have the great times in energy as the bonus and have an economy built on those other industry, then we're going to be, as we have been until June 2014, one of the 20 most successful communities in the United States. Now, there are 13,000 communities in the United States, 3,200 counties, and for 15 years, we were probably in the top 20 of every important statistic until energy happened. But the truth is, it all contributed, because when we were maybe top 20 in 1986, 70% of the economy was dependent on energy. Today, about 30%. So what you've done is diversify. And what we should continue to do is create wealth within the creative economy. I like that better than cultural economy, although I know culture is what we rested on. And so when you think about the creative economy, there's not enough income. Okay, I'm just saying that out loud. And we need to, our job is not only to improve the creative economy, but to increase the income. Okay? You know what that's about. That's about that Grammy nominee sitting next to you that nobody here knows, instead filling up a big place very often locally and having people come from all over. Okay, so I've used only about 10 minutes, and I only have 35 more, right? Okay. All right. So we'll turn it over to the real Greg Coach.
Thank you, Greg. I'm one of the managers of the Parks and Recreation Department. And what is Recreation and Parks about? Leisure time opportunities. Think about it. When you're not at work, when you have your free time with your children, with your family, what choices are you going to make? What activities are you going to be involved with? Is it family activities where the children in the park? If it's individuals, if it's youth sports, or it's dance, it's a class, aerobics class. All activities that the children participate in are important. And what values does it show in sportsmanship, in playing sports, and so forth? We offer a lot of programs in the Parks Department. A lot of people don't know about yet. You know, unfortunately, for instance, if it's dealing with go-kart track events, when we have racing, when we have participants coming from Houston and New Orleans out to Moore Park. We have, of course, Moore Park is one of our largest soccer complexes, pretty much in the state. We have a lot of competition where we have from people outside the state coming to Lafayette, not just to play soccer, but to enjoy the food, enjoy the entertainment. All of these are important aspects of participants coming in from outside the city, but how about for the residents in the city? You know, it's important if in your everyday, you know, the choices that you make. people come to Lafayette to have a good time and with the Parks Department. The city of Lafayette and the parish is kind of separated a little differently, because of consolidation. Parish funding is very small. In Lafayette Parish, we have 35 parks. In the back of the room, I brought some annual reports that list all the parks and the activities in each park. I'd like you to take time to pick up a copy sometime today and review a number of parks and the activities that go on in the park. Now, funding has been a issue, like Mayor said earlier. We have a small 2 mills, right on the 2 mills in the city of Lafayette, that collects a little less than $2 million a year. Our Parks and Recreation budget is around $13 million a year. Now, where does the rest of the money come from besides that $2 million? Well, golf courses generate, a little over $3 million in revenues. The rest of the money has to come from the city's general fund. We have to compete with fire, police, and other services in the city. Unfortunately, Lafayette does not have a parish-wide millage. Like you mentioned, Youngsville and Broussard has established that tax, and that passed very easy when that was passed a few years ago. And they have built really nice complexes. And this is good for Lafayette Parish because they bring in also teams and sports and competition into the area, which is good for tourism. But that kind of puts us in a situation where we're behind. If you look at our facilities, at one time, we had 4, maybe 5 recreation centers. Now we have 10 recreation centers. We're still operating on that same mills that we had in 1961. How do we maintain and continue to grow and compete, with the complexes that Youngsville and Broussard has? This attracts people to the area. We have, like I said, 35 parks. We have 7 major athletic complexes similar to the ones that were built in Broussard and Youngsville. And they're old. We've been putting Band-Aids on the parks instead of really having dollars to really adjust them like we need. But our role, as you know, Parks and Recreation is important to the city, important to the economy, and we hope to make an impact some way or another, through this great opportunity. I'm not as long-winded as the other Greg Gotra, so I'll pass it on.
Good morning. My name is Shanae Nelson. I'm the Community Development Director for LCG. So I have the pleasure of actually housing the Arts and Culture Division within the Community Development Department. That division houses the Hyman Performing Arts and Convention Center, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It began as a municipal auditorium, and with the great work, I see Brian McGrath out there, the Arts and Culture Manager. He and his team do an excellent job with bringing really great entertainment and acts to our area through that venue. And I think one of the challenges that we find is how do we effectively address the fact that the facility has evolved and we want to be able to open ourselves up to sponsorships. And we are a revenue generating entity, however, we're also a public entity. So I know that the term business or business model for us, it's like a bad word because, oh no, we're associated with local government. We don't say that, but I'm excited about the opportunity that Create will offer for us to identify what that looks like for the Hyman Center and to determine really what the future holds. Another part of the Arts and Culture Division is the Lafayette Science Museum, which is an excellent service that we offer here in Lafayette. The museum has done an excellent job with partnering with a number of entities and agencies throughout the parish and beyond to bring a number of exhibits and educational components to the area. So absolutely, I think broadening the scope of the Science Museum to include arts and culture, I think is something that we're currently working on, and it's certainly very timely as a part of the Create initiative. And another part of the Arts and Culture Division is the Acadiana Park Nature Station, which I'm sure all of you have taken field trips there. So I'm excited about where the Create initiative is headed and that it's shaping up this way. I remember when Mayor President Robideau brought it up and it first came about, my department was sort of the first stop to identify the first steps and what this would look like. And so to see where we are now is very exciting. Another thing I'd like to mention is we do, in partnership with the ACA, with Gerd and his team, we administer the external agency funding program. We have two parts to that. There's an arts and culture, yay, we like that. I see the applause back there. It's a great program. A part of that is the city council actually allocates annually a portion of funds to arts and culture agencies, to festivals and programs in the area. And so I think that in conversations and how that program has evolved, in looking at for the agencies and festivals that we fund, what data is out there to determine what that ROI is on the festivals and how it affects our cultural economy. And so I think it'll help us in informing that process when we go through that panel review, determining which organizations receive what and making those recommendations to the council. I think it would make the program and the possibilities more intentional and more informative. And so I'm excited about what'll come out of the CREATE initiative in that regard as well. So again, happy to be a part of this, happy to support, and of course the partnership with Parks and Rec and what we can do to support the initiative. Thank you.
Good morning, Ben Berthelot with the Lafayette Convention and Visitors Commission. It's great to be here. I want to just first say that this is the first time I can recall that we have ever said publicly that the components that make up CREATE are the #2 economic driver in our community. What a powerful thing. And through CREATE, we're saying, what can we do to better leverage that, and what can we be if we place more of a focus on the #2 economic driver in our community. So I want to thank Mayor President Robodeau for starting this conversation and for the reason that we're up here. I think that's very, very exciting. I also think it's important that we acknowledge a couple of things. Number one, every day there are 50 or 100, many of you folks working every day on cultural things. Every day there is somebody in recreation, Greg Gautreaux, Gerald Boudreaux, working on recreation. Every day we have folks working on economic development. Every day I'm waking up working on tourism, trying to bring as many visitors as I can here. But what we don't have is someone every day at City Hall working on all of these things and bringing all of these people together for a clear focus and for a clear strategy. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the examples of growing organically versus growing strategically, either later in this panel or the next one. But that's really, in a nutshell, when I think of CREATE, it's a focus as a community on how do we best leverage the #2 economic driver in our community, and how do we find those gaps and make a difference in those gaps to make our community better. And I want to close by talking a little bit about something I say publicly, something the Lieutenant Governor says publicly, and Joe referenced it earlier. And it's this whole 40-to-1 return on investment on the money that we invest in marketing our community. And every time I say that, every time Lieutenant Governor says that, people come back and say, wow, I don't believe that, or wow, let's just say maybe it's 20-to-1. But I'm going to give you some concrete numbers here. Our organization, well, first let me say this. In 2014, the Economic Impact Study said that visitors to Lafayette Parish spent $450 million in Lafayette Parish. That's domestic visitors only. It doesn't include international visitors. Our office, every year, right now, spends about $2 million in direct marketing activities. That doesn't include, salaries and the money that we spend maintaining our grounds. So $2 million. I did a little math, and I may need the mayor CPA to check this. 2 million times 40 is 80 million. I just told you that the Economic Impact Study said that visitors spent $450 million in our community, just domestic visitors. And so I'm very comfortable sitting before you today with Lee Gidrich, the advertiser here, saying that $80 million as a direct result of the $2 million that we spend marketing our community. And so I think that's very important, as well as we talk about what can we be moving forward.
I'm going to let Kathy, who gave the shortest introduction of herself, kind of conclude the introductions before I ask a couple questions.
So I'm going to put on my marketing and branding hat and just kind of talk about the work that BBR has done with Louisiana Economic Development, and also hopefully the work we'll be doing in the future with the Office of Tourism. So everything that everyone has said, and all of the entities that they represent are really elements that make up a strong cultural economy. We can have a cultural economy and we can sell it all day long, but it's important to understand that, you know, perhaps artists and musicians are not making a lot of money, but if we build our cultural economy, we're going to build our economy, period. Because if we build a place where people want to visit, we're going to have a place where people want to live. Culture, art, infrastructure are important for getting businesses here, keeping our talent here, and getting tourists here. Those two things, culture, creativity, and economy, go hand in hand. So I actually would like to thank Joel Robideau for actually thinking about this and thinking about it's the diversification of our economy that we're not just building a culture, we're not just trying to sustain it, but we're trying to build a community that really kind of goes on for years to come and that can thrive when we're all, I guess, when somebody else takes the wheel. The other part of this that hasn't really been touched upon, which really makes a successful community, is having a point of differentiation for any business, actually. For a brand, you want to have something that is authentic and that differentiates you among your competitors. And our competitors within our great state of Louisiana is Lake Charles, you know, Baton Rouge, Shreveport. But Acadiana has something so unique and completely different that New Orleans can't even say they have it, and that is our French and Creole heritage. It's the fact that we still have people speaking, you know, our native language, people that are still, you know, continuing the traditions of our ancestors from long ago. It's, you know, going to Sunday dinner with, you know, my aunts and my dad, and they're speaking French. Seeing a Creole cowboy on the side of the road on his horse. We need to take note of this and take care of it. And really, when we talk about, you know, investing in our future, our culture, our French and Creole culture are the things that we really need to really kind of keep top of mind. Because if we don't have that, then we're just, like I like to say, if we don't have our culture, if we don't have what makes us authentic, then we are just like every other town in the United States of America.
Great. Well, I heard a couple themes, and this question may end up going back to Kathy, because I think what I heard from almost everyone in terms of the value of Create is the awareness that it's going to bring to your respective entities. I mean, you know, we heard certainly from Greg talking about Parks and Recreation that we need more understanding of how much programming we're offering as a community. We need an understanding of the data and the economic impact. And so, you know, if maybe Kathy is the marketing person, if you could talk about the value of the branding side of it and the awareness side of it, and if anybody wants to chime in, like, how do you see Create helping to cement and, you know, strategically grow our creative cultural economy?
I see Create being like the leader, kind of being the one organization that helps educate the community on the importance of our cultural economy. I think that, it goes, I think it's bigger than Lafayette Consolidated Government. I feel like all of the organizations, like the ones here, but also our universities, our Acadiana partners really need to prioritize. We all need to think about this as a business, and if we were a CEO or CEOs of this business, we would all be working together, we would be pulling our departments together to focus on one thing, one goal, because, you know, in order to achieve success or actually have to make a change, everybody has to, we can't be focused on this and that and this. We need to focus on like 3 things, make it happen, and then move on to something else. But more than anything, it's pulling our organizations together. But also, for me, I'm really challenged with how do we rally the community? Like, how do we tell, you know, our friends? Like, I have so many friends that they were born here, they grew up here, I know they love our community, but they take it for granted. How do we rally the people, our neighbors, to get involved and invest? You know, pay that extra tax. Go to the horse farm and pick up trash. Do whatever it takes to make Acadiana better. I just told this to Kate. Everyone, we have our home. We live in our home. We take care of our house and our yard and our home bubble. But Acadiana is our home. So why aren't the citizens of Acadiana taking care of their community? It's the place that they live. It's their home.
Gert, if you want to, you've been fighting the good fight, trying to get people to pay attention to arts and culture for quite a while now. So if you maybe want to add to what Kathy had to say.
Well, I think Kathy mentioned something very critical, that is, we do tend to live in this wonderful environment and take it for granted. I think there's sort of a three-point outline that comes to mind for me. One is, investing in our creative economies is really easy. Because first of all, there is great collaborative spirit between artists, arts organizations, and other cultural and creative drivers. That's a bit unique in sort of a business environment. The second thing that makes it relatively easy, it's fairly inexpensive, and it makes for an easy investment with an incredibly high return on investment, as we know, which has been proven. But the most critical part is that actually investing in it creates not just return on investment, but also great natural beauty, and it supports this genuine, real brand that already is here. Many cities have had to reinvent themselves around this idea. If you were in Austin 40 years ago, they started this campaign as the, music capital of the world. Well, 40 years ago, Austin was none of that. There was sort of the ghosts of Texas swing going through the streets, but that was about it. But the self-proclaimed brand and investing in that brand and some other factors really made it what it is today. We don't have to do that. We have the luxury of having something very real and genuine here. The problem with that is we so much enjoy ourselves in this environment that we tend to forget that with some grooming and some investment, it can become something tremendous. And I think that's the other side of that coin. The critical step here is to understand that culture in this region is our greatest natural resource. I would suggest even more so than oil and gas. And just like oil and gas, we have to invest, explore, and then extract. I think we've done a very poor job in doing that up to this point.
I'm going to ask Ben to comment on that, because he brought up a great point in his introduction about the strategic versus organic. And if you could kind of talk about, just build on what Gert said.
I want to give a couple examples, and I would dare to say that many of you in the cultural economy that are working here today, you have a great idea that you want to implement. Where do you go to start that process of implementing that? Maybe you go talk to a few people, but I sort of see Create as a filter to begin that discussion. And I'll give you four examples of just conversations that I'm involved in because people call me to set up a meeting and come talk to me about it. So I met with somebody who thinks we need an African American museum. I met with somebody who says we need a Cajun and Zydeco museum. I met with somebody who says we need an oil and gas museum. And I met with somebody who's talked about the lack of performance space for our artists and our musicians. All great things, all great needs, all great ideas. And so they come to me and I listen, and that's a great idea. But I can't drive that discussion as our community by myself. They leave, maybe I'm able to give them a little bit of money to start on this process, but it's not enough to make it happen. I sort of see Create as that filter. As Kathy said, we have to be smart, we have to be strategic, and we have to be honest and say that all four of those things that I just talked about aren't going to happen right now. But as a community, this is our priority right now. And guess what? Those same people come back to me and they're looking for matching funding. I don't have matching funding. I don't have $400,000 for a grant that we can get from the Ford Foundation. But through Create, after we have said this is our priority, now all of a sudden, we potentially have that matching fund that our community has never had as long as I've been involved. We never have. We always have in-kind, we never have matching fund. Create is a potential problem solver in that regard, in that we've identified what our priority is. Now all of a sudden we have some matching funds, and all of a sudden that $500,000 initial investment in Create, maybe it's now leveraged to be $1 million. Maybe it's now leveraged to be $1.5 million. And that's a real life example. I'm not making these four scenarios up. These are conversations I've had in the last 6 months to a year. And it's that focus of, you know, how do we move forward on making some of these things happen.
That's a great point. I also want to ask maybe Greg. You know, Gerd had a, sorry, Greg goes closer to me. Gerd had a great point about, you know, investing and extracting. And if you want to talk from the economic development perspective about how you see Create doing just that, being something that allows us to get, you know, put more value as a community into our cultural economy.
What? Yeah, okay. I think that there's a few things that people need to understand. And by the way, the brilliant Stacy Zawacki actually wrote it down here. I said art is economic development in 1997, and it's still true today. So thank you, Stacy. You know, everything everybody up here is saying is true, and you want to know what the effect is, and the effect is, you know, jobs and economy and et cetera, but the effect is deeper, right? It's what Kathy calls the differentiator. And, you know, in my world, the competition literally that we're dealing with this week is San Jose, Chicago, and Bangalore. And so if we're competing with those places, you know, how are we not just different, but better? I hope that's answering your question. We have to determine how we're better, and the real differentiator is our culture. And so it's the base of all these things. But the culture lends itself to other things. It lends itself to productivity that is unparalleled among people. We play hard, we work hard. How many times have you heard it? It's true. It's really true. And so if you think about it, if you're in the medical business, the energy business, the finance business, or the technology business, you can live anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. You can get up and go somewhere and get a job in one of those industries. And if you're that gold-collar worker, and you're choosing between Chicago, San Jose, Bangalore, and Lafayette. True story. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, a lot of people are ready to choose Lafayette. And the reason they'll do that is simple. It's the differentiator. It's what makes us better. It's real, true culture. It's real people. It's all the things that we take for granted, and we take, you know, we got to get somebody to come from Germany or somebody to tell us how great this place is. You go to New Orleans last week and they tell us, you guys got it together. You talk to people yesterday, how did you build the unity you have in this community? Y'all think of Lafayette is unified? You know, it is compared to most places. The lady from New Orleans stood up last week and said, you guys got a lot of things we don't have, and unity is where we start. Because y'all are all here. We can't get all of y'all in a room together in New Orleans, and you all got in a Yukon together and drove over here. So
It was not comfortable though.
in the back seat, the driver was comfortable.
So I'm going to ask Greg, other Greg, and Shanae to talk about, I mean, this is, you know, Kathy talked about the brand, talked about investing, and you guys are within government, and to see so much community focus come on supporting your work that you do, and you've been doing, in Greg's case, for a long time, what opportunities do you see to enhance the work of your respective departments through Create?
Well, I think definitely Create will be an asset. You know, we've had the opportunity to work with the Parks Department with some private industries, private organizations that's helped us in this working out and getting grant money. For instance, Greg, with the Lafayette Kiwanis Club, their organization helped build the handicap playground at Girard Park. It's a handicap accessible and for all children, of course, but also they helped us with the improvements to Clark Field, putting artificial turf on the field. And in doing that, we used the money that the LCG put up for the project, I think it was $800,000, to apply for a matching grant with Blue Cross. And with Blue Cross, they had opportunities that went across the whole city that gave us all a bunch of opportunities. I think in 7 of our parks we put playground areas, exercise equipment in the areas where there would be, obesity was an issue. Of course, it could be an issue all over now in Lafayette. But you know, through the opportunities with the grant money, you know, together, public-private, you know, we've had many, like Ben said earlier, many groups approach us. Special interest group. That, you know, 20 years ago with disc golf. You know, disc golf got started. They approached me and, you know, throwing a disc in a basket, you know. But, of course, I did see it up north when I was traveling, and, you know, and that's good. Recently, we're working with a private organization with BMX, building a course in one of our parks. Unfortunately, we do not have any green space, excluding the horse farm, you know, Monmouth Park, that any green space that's left to be developed. You know, and we hate to take away what little green space we have. As far as any acreage in Lafayette, we do not have that in the parks. But through public-private partnerships, we're able to get things for the citizens at half the cost sometimes, you know, assisting in grants. So I think together this will give us many more opportunities, you know, with Create.
Shanae, you want to add anything? Couple minutes.
Yeah, very similar to Parks and Rec. As I mentioned with the Science Museum, has opened us up to a number of partnerships and grant opportunities. We have an Acadiana Music Experience exhibit, which of course brings in the arts and culture and also technology. I'm also partnering with LCBC. LCBC sponsored the Acadiana 360, the Virtual Reality Lab, which gives our visitors an opportunity to experience culture, or go on a swamp tour, a Mardi Gras parade, a very unique opportunity. And so we plan to leverage that in the future with, of course, opening us up to more grant opportunities that we know are out there. But now we're better positioned, and of course with the work of Create for more partnerships. We actually recently submitted an application for a Mozilla grant, hoping to do an exhibit focusing on the wetlands and that work and data collection. So again, I think that the opportunities are endless, and definitely for us wanting to open ourselves up to more grant opportunities and opportunities to leverage our resources.
Okay, well, I've seen my timekeepers tell us that we need to start to wrap up, and so I want to take the time to thank the panelists. I feel like we just scratched the surface, really, of the potential of Create, but if you all can take a moment to just look at the range of organizations up here and perspectives that we have in terms of our cultural economy, I think you'll really start to get a sense of how broad Create is going to be. And I think, you know, I was furiously taking notes because these guys were saying a lot of really great things, but I think some of the key points we hit on was this idea of strategically doing what our community has organically done for a long time. Because if we've organically achieved the second biggest economic driver, imagine what we can do if we do it strategically. And you know, we have the authenticity, and so it's just a matter of taking that brand and helping us take it to the next level. So I want to thank our panelists, and then also I don't know yet that we've really thanked LCBC for making today and tomorrow possible. So thanks to Ben. It's been a busy morning, but if you haven't checked out our agenda yet, it's pretty amazing. So it's just, you know, kudos to Ben and to Kate and those that put all of this together. So I think we're going to transition. 2 of our panelists are staying up here, and Councilman Pat Lewis is going to come take the mic and moderate the Q&A.